Perfect. Good to see you here. Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about Collabora Online, which is a project Collabora has been investing a lot in, and of course, working with ownCloud on that too. So what is it? Well, it allows you to edit documents, spreadsheets, and slides beautifully, and collaboratively edit those, of course, with presence, notification. You can see other people's selections, what they're doing, if you have redlining on what they changed, and so on. People say it's much like Google Docs, I guess, who pioneered much of this goodness. We're really very interoperable with Microsoft formats. We've got some great code there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in more detail. We can also do other funky things. So PDF viewing is actually, yes, available on request if you want a custom build. But some people like that, and lots of other formats, Visio, Publisher, Keynote numbers, and so on, Pages. Which is quite nice for all those decision makers that bought a Mac by mistake. We have WYSIWYG rendering, which is important. So what you see is what you get, is what it stands for, and this is something that's been thrown out of the window by great chunks of the market. And of course, it goes on-premise. It's amazing how many people say, can I run it inside my company, despite the fact that it says this on the website a whole lot. So I will patronize you by telling you, yes, you can actually run it on your own hardware in your own environment. And our architecture is essentially a bet on CPUs getting cheaper and threads becoming cheaper and bandwidth becoming higher and so on and so on, which seems to be a trend that's gone on for quite a while. So, a bit about Collabora. So Collabora has around 100 staff. It was founded in 2005, something like that. Collabora Productivity is a subsidiary, and we have about 20 staff. And it's owned by half Collabora and half me. And we have a raison d'etre, which is why we do things, which is to make open source rock. We have a mission to make open source succeed. And so that's what we do. As you pay us money, we reinvest that in open source and making the product better, making open source code better. It doesn't go to buying Lamborghinis for plutocrats, let's say. And we're some kind of leaders in the LibreOffice community, which adds to our 20 people another, around 300 developers, 1,000 contributors or so. And yeah, we also ship Docker images here that are often very easy to use with it, ownCloud and so on. And we have around 7.7 now million Docker images downloaded. So lots of people are using it, trying it out, having a good time. So a bit about us. So one of the things we do is we like to work with partners a lot. Obviously, ownCloud is a great example of that. But we have around 130. Here are some of them. So AMD we work closely with, trying to optimize for their hardware. We've been involved with all sorts of Ryzen pre-releases and making this work better with that. Big banks, I guess, is one kind of vertical that likes to save money. So we work there with Studio Storti, one of the top 3 Italian banks, all their branches. And we work with the Dutch military, for example, people that have a desire to have their data secure and to know where it is and who is accessing it and so on, around classification and so on. And Dell is another key partner of ours. So, here we go. One of the cool things, though, is that we work with ownCloud. So I think, Holger has been a key influencer in our product roadmap, and I think we have a great partnership there. But the good thing about that is that you have one neck to choke. You have one, throat to strangle. When it goes wrong, you can go and talk to Cornelius, and he's actually an expert in this, and getting this set up, and his team can do support and work with you, which is great. I've been in circumstances well, take a bank in Ireland where I was, and you sit down around the table, and even the people sitting in the building wearing the tie actually work for different companies. There's the boss, and his employees have been outsourced to random other companies everywhere. And when there's a problem, you have 3 vendors, 4 vendors, several different people. Who is to blame? What is the problem? And so even when I put up the hand and say, actually, it's entirely our fault. It's entirely us. We're going to go and fix it for you, and it'll be fixed soon. People don't really know what to do, and they're still trying to take responsibility. There's still a blame game, even when it's clear where the problem is, which is quite comic. So it's exactly what you don't have with ownCloud and getting Collabora Online through them. It's a very clear chain of blame, let's say. So our vision really is to provide something that's full-featured, of course, open source, but the full feature is quite important. I'll come to that in a second. On-premise, I've mentioned before, we don't really want to be compromising and producing a horrible product that just drives you to use our PC product. We're interested in producing a full-feature collaborative experience. So I think that really complements ownCloud's vision around on-premise, collaboration, control of your data, and so on. Here's a great example of a stopgap solution that's not as wonderful as it could be, filled with advertising for going and using a different product. And this is exactly what we're trying to avoid. Limits of file size. I think this is particularly nice. Bigger than 5 megabytes for your spreadsheet, bad luck. We've got shapes in your spreadsheet. Sorry, you can't do really shapes. These are all Microsoft Office Online dialogues that we've seen. Yeah, I don't know. So we try and be full-featured. Of course, this is what it looks like. Perhaps some of you have seen it. Redlining, we think that's kind of a useful feature. Again, Word Online doesn't have redlining. It has commenting, but not redlining, editing documents in line, which is a shame. Of course, it doesn't do columns either. It's not really a WYSIWYG editor. If you want to see where your footnotes are, who knows? Who knows how it's going to be printed out? When you put images in, where they'll be positioned on the page is deeply unclear, because you're not really seeing what you're going to get. You're collaborating, which is cool, and people give up a lot for collaboration. I mean, they even use wikis. But it's nice to actually see what's going to come out of the printer. And full feature, well, what does that mean? Here's another example. The things the feature matrix hides. So our competitor here has also got borders in the spreadsheet, right? It's kind of useful to set borders on cells. Many people do that. This is the complete set of borders you can get in Microsoft Office Online, Excel Online. So sure, they do borders, but only some of them. So for example, if you want a thick left border, well, you can get a thick bottom one, or you can get a thick outside one. Maybe you can set a thick outside border on like the cells and then go and set no border on the others around it. That might work. But it's kind of suboptimal. Of course, Collabora Online then provides the full rich functionality, diagonal borders, different colors, different stipples, different line styles, the whole lot. And that's really important for interoperability, because somewhere, someone out there set some of these options. And it's nice if you can see it, render it, and potentially turn it off as well, which is kind of good. So when you look at the feature matrix, it's very hard to capture this depth in it. You'll end up with a feature matrix that's 1,000 pages long or something, and no one will read anyway. But it's useful to just see some of the examples. So interoperability. Yes, well, we need a sort of like an L10N type shrinking for interoperability. But I think it's very important to us. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on this. Yeah, there's 8 million lines of code in LibreOffice, which we leverage for our core. And there's about 30 million in Microsoft Office. I think they're cutting and pasting a bit and doing some other stuff. But I'd argue that we're the most mature code base outside Microsoft for this. And when you start to look at the specifications, which run into the millions of words, it's a big problem. It's not a small problem. But we think that we provide just a great solution here. Now, there are people out there who claim 100% interoperability. I mean, I was on the technical committee for ECMA when we standardized Microsoft's file format. I've interacted with these people and worked in this space for 20 years, starting off reverse engineering Excel's binary file formats. And I have as yet to see 100% compatibility anywhere, including in Microsoft Office, interestingly. So like between versions, between platforms, there are problems. And that's before you get bugs. Before you go and report a bug to them and they go, oh, please don't be compatible with that. That's a layout bug that we didn't mean to put in Microsoft Office. So there are always challenges here, but I think, we do a really good job. We work really hard at this. And of course, we work with our partners and customers, particularly on their templates, to make sure that their documents that they've created from long ago with those templates continue to work nicely. So I think interoperability is then a mix of import, rendering, obviously is very important, but also understanding the feature set. And you really have to understand the format, because if you don't, you can screw it up. If you can't calculate the spreadsheet, when someone changes a number, well, what do you save in the file format? What do you do? Is that full fidelity? there are all sorts of document features, cross-referencing and things that can cause problems. But the good news is this. If you go and check out Google Docs, you'll discover that its interoperability is substantially worse in many ways. In fact, even Google Docs uses LibreOffice on its back end, actually, for doing file conversion. So, if you download your ODF files, you can check the version they're using. It's interesting. Similarly, if you use Microsoft Online, there are significant failings to it and significant feature gaps. So we can provide something that is better from a feature function perspective, can be deployed on your premise, and interoperates better than the other online products. Now, there's a lot of marketing that blurs online and offline together. You'll notice some of the large vendors calling both of these things by one name. So it becomes very hard to distinguish which feature is in which one. And you can see why. I think that's a very smart move from a marketing perspective. But I think collaboration here is really the key driver. We can provide something that helps people to collaborate, and that's clearly very important. Let's give an example here of 100% fidelity. So Microsoft says, sorry, we can't load this field. This is actually in Collabora Online on the left. It's just for docking your luxury yacht. It's very important. If you have a luxury yacht, and I don't, you fill in all of these forms as you get there, and Collabora Online does this beautifully. You tab through, the protected sections work, it's all good. Word Online is not confident doing this because it doesn't understand protected sections. Yeah, sure, maybe you could load them and maybe you could save them again, but hey, you would have edited all the protected sections. That would potentially not be what people want. So yeah, it just says, well, bad luck, use the PC version. So here we go, online. So we have some pretty good and significantly improving mobile UI work. So we're working quite hard on this at the moment. And so we can leverage the server there. If you have a device with relatively low power, and not much oomph in it, certainly not enough to load large spreadsheet, hundreds of thousands of rows and lots of formulae, you can still get that then quickly by loading it rapidly on the server, rendering the bits you're interested in, and bringing it down to your UI. And of course, the pan and zoom and tiles and so on are rendered quickly on the client. So it's reasonably snappy and responsive and allows you to edit it. And so your mobile device then is not limited by its CPU power, by its RAM, by what it can do. It can load great big stuff. And similarly, it's not limited by its font set that it has installed. You can install the whole smorgasbord of fonts that you want on the server, and it'll render just as well on any device. And of course, the document data is staying on the server too. So we transmit that as pixels to you. So it's hard to extract the document data out of the server. Comments, I believe, come as text, but the rest of it is pixels. And we can watermark those pixels as well. So we can make sure that if you're taking photographs of the screen or doing this sort of thing to try and send them to your friends, your name is all over it. So if you have serious security needs, it's comforting to know that your secret documents on your on-premise server are not being sent en masse as a whole DOM model of the document somewhere that's easy to dump and extract the text and email and send on to other people. So, yes, we do spreadsheets as well, as you can see here. We do grouping as well, for people who like to group their spreadsheets to hide previous financial years or, I don't know, whatever it is they like to do. People use spreadsheets for amazing things, teams, project management, whatever. And we found that grouping is quite a nice feature. Almost no one else has. Presentations, of course, such as this one. So, there you are. That's a bit about the product. So the technical stuff under the hood, particularly for deploying it, we think we get about 10 active users per CPU thread. So my laptop has 8 threads. We think about 80 people on the laptop, concurrent users. So if you have a large, company, how many people are hard at work typing in their word processor or their spreadsheet? I don't know. It's hard to judge that percentage of time. Maybe we should break some labor laws by measuring it. I don't know. But it seems to me that quite a lot of people spend time writing email, responding to it, researching the news for important current trends, that might impact their work and so on. And so, yeah, so the capacity factors we see are often, 10 to 1, 100 to 1, that sort of thing. So little laptop here is hosting quite a large company's worth of stuff. And with some real server hardware and an HA cluster, you can obviously do a lot better. So, yes, so we want about 50 meg of RAM each per active user, actually really per active document there. So if many people are collaborating on the same one, obviously there's less document model to have. And we want about a gigabyte of spare space to preload stuff. So the way we can get our memory use down to 50 meg per document is by consuming memory up front. So we load our configuration and it's all shared. We load our, some fonts. We load all of our shared libraries and link them. We staticize loads of strings so that they're shared, and so on and so on. So we can squeeze that amount right down. But it does mean that we need at least a blob. So as with any large Java application, don't judge it by the startup time. Judge it by how quickly threads are launched and it serves people. So there you go. Ultimately, we think these things are getting significantly cheaper, and we're really thrilled with AMD's work on Ryzen. It is lowering the cost per thread and increasing the capability very significantly in the market, as I'm sure all of us will see when we get our i9 laptops or our Raven Ridge laptops with many more threads at remarkably cheaper prices. So for high availability then, we split the load obviously across multiple machines, and we go through a proxy. HA proxy is a good choice, or F5 we can work with. And you come in here and the real key is that since our collaboration works by bringing everyone into the same process, the same memory, I guess, is that you have to ensure that all users collaborating end up in the same place. Luckily, yes. So if you're configuring your balancer, you really have to be aware that stuff with the same WOPI source, because we use a standard protocol called WOPI, which is actually a Microsoft protocol. Everyone with the same WOPI source needs to be on the same machine. Otherwise, you end up loading the document twice in two different machines, and then they fight, which is not good. So if you see fighting, then you've managed to screw up your load balancer. But it's reasonably easy to fix. What else? So new fun stuff. So one of the particularly good features that's come since last year is the ability to enable Collabora Online for a subset of groups. So lots of people use ownCloud to isolate different sets of users, different kinds of users, by having separate and disjoint groups for them, as I understand it. And this causes some problem with enabling applications for certain groups. So if you enable applications for a group that includes multiple of these other customers, suddenly this isolation breaks, and that's bad. So there's a special way of doing it for Collabora Online, and you can just add a list of your customers or groups, whatever, to here, and then these guys can play with it, and gals, of course. Similarly, there's ability to just use a new version. So if you're upgrading, we've done a whole lot of work to make sure the upgrade works nicely across the cluster. You don't need a homogeneous cluster in terms of having exactly the same version across your HA cluster, so you can upgrade one by one by one by one and just check it works. And similarly, you can then just have some test users for the new version, see how it pans out, and so on. Be aware that if you're sharing a document between new users and old users, potentially you have this fighting problem of two different models loading it. So not ideal, but just be aware as you test it. What else? So Collabora Online 3.4. So this is a few little roadmap things. 3.4 is coming out soon, and there's a few features in it. 3.4 is really probably the last stable release of our 3 series. We'll be going to 4.0 in the second half of this year. But there's some key things there that people have asked for. So the first thing is halving the rendering latency per keystroke. So previously, so let's go back. Back in the day, I worked on GNOME, I guess, and we were going up with GTK versus Qt. And GTK rendered significantly faster than Qt. Like, it really rendered very quickly, but it rendered it while you were looking at it, so you saw it render. Qt, on the other hand, was more cunning. It rendered to an off-screen buffer and then blitted the results onto the screen. Bing, it's done. And it turns out that people perceived it as faster, even though, in fact, it was slower, which is quite distressing, as you can see anyway. So double buffering is per se a good thing. What turns out to be a really bad thing, however, is nothing to do with double buffering. It's all to do with interaction. So previously we were effectively moving the cursor, and at the same time as we sent a cursor update, we sent an invalidate request. So the rendering was then delayed by two hops, but the cursor movement was delayed by 1. And this is really annoying. I mean, I don't know. When you go back to it, yes, it makes people upset. So now we fixed this. We've removed 1 round trip from this latency, and this really, really helps improve the perceived interactivity. You sit clueless people that know nothing of latency or interactivity down in front of it. I might have experimented with my family here. And they immediately notice it, so it's kind of cool. And so the round trips, San Francisco to Europe, which used to be more painful, is now reasonably acceptable and kind of good. There's a pretty graph there of update latency. Obviously, as you start to type more keys, some of that is pipelined anyway, so that explains the funny shape of the graph. And improved dialogue opening times, which have been needlessly slow. Other good things, much improved mobile UX. I said we've been working hard on that. And just some silly things. I mean, like IE, WebSockets are really cool. They're awesome. They are the way to get interactive applications. But in Internet Explorer 11, there's a maximum limit of 6 of these for the whole browser, which is a great. I mean, like, I don't know why 6, but anyway. Some product manager somewhere has a dice and rolled them and came up with the highest number. I don't know. Anyway, luckily you can reconfigure this if you know how. So we now warn about this problem and point people at the go change your weirdo configuration somewhere. Hopefully, well, Edge is much better in this regard, of course. And GDPR will kill us all. And so there's logging anonymization and all sorts of good things. So you've no idea what happened later, but you can see hashes instead of people's names. And if you're lucky, you can correlate those hashes with something else somewhere else, and maybe you're all right. But at least the logs then are clean, which is good. So that's all coming in 3.4, which is due this week. Maybe even now, probably not now, but this week. Let me see. And Collabora Online 4.0 later this year. So there's a whole load of things actually coming. I'm not going to show you all of them. I'll show you some. So one of the things is just improving shape editing. So sadly, bigger and better grab handles for sizing and moving shapes are also there, but not in the chart. So nice palettes, so you can use some of the power of our custom shape engine and draw diagrams and so on inside your slides and documents. Starting to bring sidebars here, so there's a whole load of goodness in our existing sidebars that do all sorts of fun stuff. So if you want to edit a presentation at the moment, it's pretty ropey. It's good for collaborating around a presentation that was already written. But it's pretty awful for creating a new one, like you'd never want to do that. So we're improving that in 4.0 and bringing in sidebars so you can allow complex animations, transitions, master pages, selecting all sorts of attributes of things is really, really helpful. And it's going reasonably well and working nicely, and lots more. Obviously, having a Collabora Online 6.0 base then improves interoperability and improves a whole load of other pieces as well. We're having a new look, so improved icon theme there, more mobile stuff, better thumbnailing. So there are lots of people that like to thumbnail documents to provide pretty views of documents and templates and so on. Formula entry, so some people like to see a list of formulae. It's amazing how many people think the quality of a spreadsheet is in some way correlated to the number of formulae it has in its formula dialog. So anyway, we need a formula dialog with a large number of formulae in it. So we'll do that. Of course, really, spreadsheets are all about horrible corner cases of what happens when I multiply an error by a Boolean. What do I get if I'm, because this is unfortunately the grist of the horrors of corner cases of spreadsheets. Implicit intersection and so on. It's nothing to do with how many formulae have names in your selector and work in some simple cases. So we're improving that, and hopefully that'll be helpful, and much more to come, really. So why Collabora? Well, I think it's awesome, but don't believe me. Try it out for yourself. Become one of the 7.7 million Docker image downloads. Have a play with it. See what you think. I think a key thing, particularly this conference, is the partnership with ownCloud. I think that's very important, as I said, for getting seamless support and a great experience from people that really know what they're doing. And yeah, we're improving rapidly. And we'd love to have you as a customer so we can talk about what you want and how we can best deliver that for you as part of our product management relationship. And it's really easy to deploy. I think that's perhaps one thing I forgot to say, is that we talk to ownCloud via WAPI. And WAPI is a protocol that ties together authentication and storage. And we don't really use anything else. So there's no database to set up. There's no fiddling with any kind of special storage. There's no new technology. It's really a very low technology footprint. Like we're a C++ native app that installs relatively cleanly. And we're not going to be needing different versions of PHP, different operating systems underneath. We run on practically anything. And yeah, just reasonably easy to set up like that. And of course, we're backed by this, this fun community with hundreds of people in it, based in Germany, with a Stiftung behind us, based in Berlin. And that's pretty much Collabora Online. So thank you for listening. You're very patient. Do we have any questions? Aha, excellent. It's always getting the first question is most difficult. I could run and give you this microphone if that helps, but I think there's probably another one here. I don't know. Hello, hello. Oh, both work. Look at that. There you go. Then we can heckle more aggressively. It's great.
Hi, my name is William. I'm from Surf.
Good to meet you, William.
And I was wondering if my users share a file through a link, so with a user that is not an ownCloud user, is it possible that they can collaborate in that document?
So that is a very good question. So I don't remember the answer, Holger. I think we were going to do that. Soon. Yes, soon is the answer. Yes, good, good. I'm glad.
I remembered in the presentation yesterday that this was on the roadmap. But there was
correct. This was one of the things Patrick had yesterday on the roadmap. For a single file, it's right now technically not possible because we don't have an edit right for single files, which you would have to give to people doing that. So for a folder, we could make it work if you make that request. There is just a small thing missing. For a single file, it's on the roadmap and will need a little.
So while Holger is here, let me mention all the other feature requests I want. So I think one of the great strengths of Collabora Online is that protection of your data and having it on the server there safely. And what we'd really love to see is more granular permissions. Can comment, can't edit, or can't download but can redline, for example. And unfortunately these things turn into a monster octopus of and what do you do for the JPEG that but this would be really cool for us, at least.
But if I do understand correctly, Holger, it is possible when I share my folder with a non-ownCloud user and give him edit rights on the folder, then it's possible to collaborate with the files that are in the folder?
It's technically possible.
Yes.
Right now it wouldn't work. So we need a small, on that one, we just didn't get any customer requests on that particular one yet. As soon as we get, we'll investigate and make it happen. That's probably 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
From a time frame perspective. The other one just takes longer.
Okay.
And then on Michael's input, I think we just have to collaborate on these things. And from our perspective, we also want to look into locking as an additional thing which we are gonna integrating in ownCloud 10 as well as in 11. And I think that will also have a benefit for Collabora users as well as other collaborative editing users.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yes, I only just arrived 5 minutes ago, and I really haven't talked to Holger before the beginning of my talk. But yes, locking sounds well. So I'm a locking skeptic, but I know what my partners want, and we have to. We are the loyal servants of our partners and customers. So I'm sure we can add some locking. Your document is locked. Please locate the person that is now in a tunnel underground with no internet connection and tell them to unlock the document. So yes, there are all sorts of fun things with locking. But thank you, William. That's a great question. I'm loving it. And I should point out that there's awesome things happening at CERN with WOPI and locking. And I don't know if you've had to talk about that, but maybe sometime later there is. Oh, I should also point out that Univention is awesome and that we're shipping inside the Univention store, and you can get not just Docker images from Docker Hub, but also even easier to use virtual machines from Univention. So like Docker, you have to learn Docker and stuff, whereas the Univention image is even easier. It's a plugin, turn it on, and there it is. A beautiful pre-made appliance, all ready to go. And Nico, will love to talk to you about it, as will I. Was there another question? I don't know how we're doing for time or anything. No? Yes? Question? No? Oh, well. Give it another 30 seconds. So my wife is a counselor, and one of the key skills is to wait. So not say anything. So you say, uh-huh, and then just wait. Unfortunately, I have an employee called Andras Timar who outweights me every time. And it's just frustrating. I need to learn patience. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. You've been very good. Backpacking.